Well, it's always a treat to have somebody like Dr. Peter McCullough come in studio with us. And with that in mind today, I wanted to ask you guys on X what you think real COVID-19 accountability looks like, because that's where we are at right now, trying to push everything forward with the mandate, with the agenda. What is it going to look like with COVID-19? Some of your responses. We start with Ashton. She said, putting people on trial. That's what real COVID accountability looks like to me. Now, Peterson, that is a very big deal. And I know Ashton watches the Steve Day show all the time. And Steve always says, after a fair trial, of course.
Yeah, he does say after a fair trial, of course. I think that she's right. I mean, there's no accountability unless wrongdoing is punished. And trials are what we need, actual courts of law. You heard today from Dr. Peter McCullough say this could be civil, which is absolutely true. There's a lot of different ways to go after wrongdoing, but I think that a lot of Americans who went through this feel like there has to be some real legal trial. These people really need to do that. And look, the right doesn't usually say, like, we're going to put all our opponents in jail. That was something the left has been all about for the last 9 years. But right now, yeah, we're going to need that.
Liberty Linda is also in agreement with all of this. She said criminal malpractice charges and charges for crimes against Americans, crimes against humanity. Nuremberg, too. She says never a congressional investigation. Right? It's basically like, we've heard your strongly worded letters. We need more.
Yeah, I mean, criminal malpractice. Again, it's people want this set in stone in some way, right? They really want the force of law, the rule of law to come into play, whereas the investigation, we all know, it might be a kind of punishment that's public, right? That you've been shamed in some way if you care about what the Republican committee says. But we've seen this happen over and over again, and people just know in their gut it's not good enough. Not good enough this time.
Yeah, and Fred Bell answered, real COVID-19 accountability, it's not about a few people getting grilled on TV. It's about holding leaders and big pharma to the fire for the decisions that cost lives and made billions. No more passing the buck. And I think that is an important point, because people made so much money off of the decisions that were made, off of the actions that were taken. And you see it, that it cost lives. People's lives were at stake. People lost family members. And yet people just went through and said, oh, you know what? We can make a couple $1 billion off of this. So that's what they needed to do. Yeah,
I mean, Fred makes a great point, because it's about a lot more than political leadership, and it's about a lot more than the researchers who are doing terrible research they shouldn't have been engaged in and covering it up. This is actually also about, as you say, billions of dollars from large corporations that conservatives, sadly, have pretended for a long time could do no wrong. I mean, National Review had some article about how big pharma is back and it's good. And it's sort of like, we have no problem with corporations per se, but you're an insane person if in the year of our Lord 2025, you think you live in some kind of, cartoonish version of the free market where there's no collusion, et cetera. These companies did horrific things, and we need to expose how that system works so that everyone understands it and is on the same page when it comes to what to do about it.
Well, as Dr. Peter McCullough was saying when he was here, well, there were all of these other options that we could have had, but it got narrowed down to one thing, and that's all you could do. It was only going to be the vaccine or bust, even if you had other options on the table. No, don't look that way. Be herded over here into our one thing.
Yeah, just an absolute catastrophic failure in leadership on many levels from multiple sectors in dealing with the COVID-19 virus. To me, it is one of the biggest examples you could look at of what's wrong with the world in which we live.
Well, give us your closing thoughts, because I know justice is absolutely needed.
Yeah, so one of the things we're going to be talking about more on this show, for good reason, because there's so many of these incidents that have occurred over the last decade, is this concept of justice was actually really important. We have a friend, Matt Meehan, who will be on the show to talk about this. He's been talking about it in the airwaves. This is really important to get right, and I just want to lay the groundwork for it right now. The reason that people are saying, that we need this response is because something needs to be repaired that has been damaged. And there's a lot that's been damaged. People's lives have been lost. Their livelihoods have been lost. Their reputations have been lost, and their trust that built up over time in various institutions and credentials has also been lost. So there really is a harm that's been done in many ways to many people because of this kind of wrongdoing. And if you're going to repair that, if you're going to move past that, if you're going to build a healthy society, a healthy civilization, and healthy institutions, then it's going to have to start by not papering over what the problem is. It's almost as if you're walking, in the landscape of reality today, not the landscape the media shows you, but the way the world actually is. And you have all these craters, right, from all these empty spaces where everything's just been bombed to hell by all the stuff that has happened, and that's the public square right now. So to repair that, you need to fill in those holes, and you have to bring about some justice. You have to bring justice about, which is about everything being in the right relationship to each other. So there is no way to move forward in America over the next 4 years of the Trump administration properly and to build the foundation for the golden age and all the positive things that we want. There's no way to do that without providing justice, and that means punishing people who have done things that are wrong. There's also a practical result from this, which is very important, which is that it scares the crap out of people who might do it again, right? And it prevents people from doing bad things. Like this is a crazy thing to have to say out loud, but we do because of the insanity that's been going on in the academia and at what we've been taught for years. And one of those things is it's as simple as if you put people in jail for crimes, the crime will go down. I know people say that that's not true, but that is crazy nonsense. When we locked people up, my father was involved in this and in researching this, and when we locked people up, for instance, for drug use after it was getting out of control in the 80s, guess what happened? Like crime went down. I mean, we don't believe that now, right? So when it comes to corruption, when it comes to everything that happened with COVID, when it comes to everything that the FBI did, this kind of stuff will continue, and we won't be able to build anew unless people who did wrong are punished for their actions.
So listen to this part. The Big Short is one of my favorite movies, right? And I watched it in theaters the first time. And at the end of the movie, the narrator's like, oh yeah, and all these people went to jail and they did all these things because it was so bad. And I was in the theater and I go, no, they didn't. But then he goes through and again, he says, oh no, I'm just kidding, right? Because in a financial crisis, no one went to jail.
Yes.
There was no reckoning for it. And we are now going to be in a very similar position in the near future because nothing was done the first time about it. We are now in a very similar situation when it comes to everything medical. So you see all of these different areas, right? It's going to be like whack-a-mole. It's going to be in the financial sector. It's in the health sector. It's all over right now. And I think people could feel that when Donald Trump was on the campaign trail without knowing maybe that these are the different things that are rising up. But you can feel that there's no accountability. And that's a problem.
Yes, we need someone to set things right. We're going to bring him back to do it. I think your point is a very important one. The 2008-2009 crisis, right? In a way, like, yes, you're exactly right. No one was punished. All the big dogs got away with it and everything was fine, except the entire populist movement, right, that ended up coming through the Tea Party and beyond led to Donald Trump. And it led to the changing of the guard in the Republican Party and the entire sort of establishment falling apart. And so the Republican Party, in a sense, has been replaced by Donald Trump and his administration and totally redefined, whether you think that's good or bad, because of the fact there was no justice in what happened in 2008, 2009, and the right was not equipped to really bring that about. So you will get, right, your due in this life, even though it doesn't work out perfectly where, as the good book says, where everyone's rewarded perfectly in this life, but there's still going to be some rough justice that comes to you. It's just that's going to destroy things instead of build something new.
And if the Tea Party came out of the 2008 stuff and it eventually gave us Make America Great Again, I'm just wondering what this is going to look like 20 years from now. What this could potentially even morph into if everybody is this excited and this energized right now in the base.
If we lay the right foundation now, and do these sorts of things now, this will be a lasting realignment that will last for decades.
I hope you're right, because that's definitely needed at this point in time. And we'll continue to point out all the good and bad Republicans here on the show. You know we will here on The Mandate. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and we'll be back to break it all down.